Well, every year we gather up with our friend Gerald Celente, the top trends forecaster in the world, who routinely nails it on his forecasts for the upcoming year. The Trends Journal is a must-read every week. We certainly read it around here, and we love having Gerald Celente on the show. Sort of an annual tradition. We want to invite Gerald back here in January to talk about his top trends for 2025. You nailed them last year, Gerald. And once again, back with your new round of forecasts. So I think we're going to today Gerald, just go through like 4 of them. You guys all obviously have to read them yourselves, but we're going to pick out 4 that I think we'll kind of highlight here. First of all, Gerald, can you just give an idea, like, to our audience, like what you're looking at when you're putting your trends together? I've known you for decades now, and you've nailed it repeatedly. What kind of data are you pulling into to look at when you're putting all of your trends together for the upcoming year?
Well, one of the most important things is we say that opportunity misses those who view the world through the eyes of their profession. So let's say somebody said, they like to trade stocks or whatever, or they're a doctor, whatever. They know their field, but they're not looking at all of the other issues that affect those. All things are connected, as Chief Seattle said, like the blood which unites us all. So that's one thing. We look at from geopolitics to economics to technocracy to high-tech science to AI to health, fitness, nutrition. We look at everything going on and then make connections between different fields. And the other important element is, you mentioned about data. It is so hard now to get data. The Wall Street Journal has turned into crap newspaper. I used to love it. There are days when we don't get one article from it that's trend worthy. We're looking for data. We need data. And again, you're seeing one company after another. What did Washington Post just fired another 4% of its workers? You pick up the New York Times. They call it the paper record. I call it the toilet paper record. This is not a lie. You look at the business section, particularly on a Sunday, 3/4 of the page or more are a picture of some stupid crap. And you open the paper up, big pictures. Back in the day, there were hardly any pictures. There was stuff called text. Journalism is dead. So it's very hard to get data. So again, what do? Let's go to the Israel war. We don't only read what the West is putting out, from BBC to The Guardian to DW, Euronews, and the American press. We go to the Israeli press. We subscribe. We pay to go to Haaretz. We go to Times of Israel, Jerusalem Post. Oh, and then we go to Press TV. We go to ISNA, IRNA, Tehran Times. We want to hear what the Iranians have to say. Oh, we go to Arab News, Al Jazeera. We want to hear what the Arabs have to say. So then we say, this is what they're saying. This is our analysis, and this is where we see it going. So there's no propaganda in there. We're not selling our line. And that's what, look at the news. You like Trump, you watch Fox. You like the Democrats, you watch MSNBC. How about just getting information that you could think for yourself? No, that's
right.
Not allowed anymore. I call the media in America prostitutes, media whores that get paid to put out by the corporate pimps and the government whoremasters. So what you're doing, for example, is journalism. You have all these different people on saying all different things. You don't have to agree with them. You have to listen to them and make your own analysis based on the facts. So that's what we do.
I love it. You're right. I mean, on this show, we'll have a reporter on exposing the lies of what's been happening in Syria, exposing the lies of what's been happening in Gaza, and with facts, unemotionally, here are the facts, and then you make your own determination. If you've got a particular worldview, then, you're not going to be swayed by those facts. You'll stick to it, and those aren't the people that our show is really geared towards. Our show is for people who are open-minded and who, when they see facts come in, they adjust their position. And I think that's why we love you, and we love what you do at the Trends Forecast. I love watching you on Twitter or X because you speak truth to power all the time, and you are not bought and sold, that's for sure. So let's go through some of the top 2025 trends that you guys have laid out this year. And let's start with one of your top trends here in the Journal, which is called Trump Card. So obviously the inauguration happening here, President-elect Trump entering his second term, Joe Biden out. What do you mean by the Trump Card? What can we expect?
Well, let's take the tariff issue. And again, you only go by the facts. When he was in office, he said he was going to do some things with tariffs and some things he didn't do with them. So what is he going to do? Is the tariff issue going to be the issue that he says it's going to be? And by the way, I'm a political atheist. I only look at things for the way they are. I'm not I believe in the human spirit, not the political crime syndicate.
Right.
Who the F are you to tell us what to do is my thinking. So on the tariff issue, there was a guy by the name of President McKinley. And you could Google it up, McKinley tariffs. He says, what would you like? Would you like cheap products or higher wages? So we build manufacturing. Now let's go back to the facts. Again, all things are connected. This is an example. Let's go back to the Ukraine war when it began in February 2022. Joe Biden put sanctions on Russia. And European countries and company after company is flooding out of Russia. Now, remember, we're going back to tariffs and what Trump is doing. Putin's going to pay the price. That's a quote from Biden. Putin didn't pay the price. We said when it happened, they're not going to suffer from this. They have the human and natural resources to be self-sufficient. And that's exactly what has happened in Russia. Their economy is doing very well. Their inflation's up, but hey, it's up in a lot of places. But it didn't go down. Putin didn't pay the price. So going back to Trump's tariffs, America has all the human and natural resources to be self-sustaining. You take a country like Germany, the third largest economy in the world, the largest in Europe. They're in a recession. They're not very good in the AI field, are they? No, they're not. And the ones that are in AI, they're moving to America. So we have the human and natural resources to make this possible. Will it bring up inflation? Yeah, it will. But will he stick by what he says and put the tariffs on what he says? So we don't know. And then you look at the geopolitical side. Look what just happened with this, the possible ceasefire in Gaza. And it was brought to that guy, was Whitcliffe, whatever his name is, that the Middle East envoy that Trump brought in his cabinet, not the Biden administration. So will this happen? So now it's a toss-up, by the way, as we're on the air. Now they're saying, again, this just came out before we went on the air from CNN. Netanyahu makes rare political error complicating approval of Gaza truce. And they go on to say that he faces a stark choice. Give into extremist right-wing demands to return to war after 42-day ceasefire, or accept support from the political opposition and give them veto power over his future in office. Anyway, so it's up in the air because that extreme right-wing government that supports him says that we're only going to do it for 42 days, which is not going to be a deal. But the Trump administration made this happen. So people are very positive on a lot of issues. So the wild cards, though, is he going to stick by what he says? Because you could look at his track record. He says some things and does other things. So we don't know.
So basically, it's kind of up in the air. Will we see these tariffs against Canada and Mexico and Europe, where we have a trade deficit to Europe? Europe has a massive multi-billion-dollar trade surplus from the United States. Good luck finding American products on European store shelves. You're basically not going to find them, or very few of them, because they just don't allow us to send them to Europe. So yeah, I think you're right. It's going to be interesting to see.
This is important too. It just came to my mind. Interest rates. That's the name of the game. I mean, you saw what happened when the numbers come down, with the inflation numbers are lower than expected. Boom, the equity market goes up 700 points, the Dow. Will Trump force the Federal Reserve to lower interest rates. And if anybody says he can't force them into doing it, again, tracking trends is the understanding of where we are, how we got here to see where we're going. So let's go back to 2018, December. Oh, you had the worst Dow in December 2018 since the Great Depression, 1931. Trump was in office. What did he do? He pushed Powell into lowering interest rates. He lowered them in January 2019. So as we're looking at the markets and where the things, and what we do in the Trends Journal, we call it, become an on-trendpreneur. We give you the facts. We don't tell you what to do. So let's go back to one of our top trends for 2024. It would be a golden year for gold. When we made that forecast, gold was $2,040 an ounce. As we're on the air now, it's $2,717 an ounce.
You said it would hit an all-time high, and it did. Yeah.
Yep. It just went up again because of the low inflation rate. And they believe that the Fed will increase lowering interest rates. But that's only a couple of day thought because more data is going to keep coming out. So again, the lower interest rates go, the deeper the dollar falls. The deeper the dollar falls, the higher gold prices go up. Go back to Trump. The Trump card. He will do everything to keep the economy strong. He's invested in it. From Bitcoin to buildings to you name it, stocks, they want the economy to stay high. And you look at, he brought 10 billionaires into his club. They want to keep the economy up. The only way the economy is going to go up was with interest rates going down. So that's the way we're looking at things.
So I was going to ask you a second here. We had Trump card. Another one of your trends forecasts for the year is on the economy. So you've already kind of gotten there a little bit, but do you think the economy is going to boom? I mean, we're already seeing markets responding to this. You mentioned gold prices. Of course, one of the big drivers of economic revival would be cutting of regulation and lowering corporate tax rates. Getting rid of the socialism in the United States, turning it back to a capitalistic system. Do you think that Trump's going to do that? What are your predictions for the economy in 2025?
There are wild cards. And the wild card that no one's talking about, anybody Google it up, Castle Systems, Kastle Systems. Office occupancy rate in the United States. I just looked it up before we went on the air. You ready?
Yeah.
43%. 43%. Your office vacancy rate, depending on the numbers you're looking at in the largest cities, are around 20% vacant. Let's go back to the COVID war. That began in 2020. Now these leases are up. After 4 or 5 years, 6 years, the leases are coming up. People aren't going to be taking back the spaces that they had. You go back to last year on 50th Street, New York. I mean, you know New York. You know 50th Street, Midtown, a building that was sold for $320 or $312 million back in 2006. Last year went on for auction, and it was sold for $8.5 million. From $300 million to $8.5 million. It's in the middle of the block. No windows behind it, no windows on the side of it. Convertible, no, not to. They keep talking about they're going to convert this to apartments. No. The buildings built within the last 50 years, according to the data, are non-convertible. Going back, there's going to be an office building bust that nobody's talking about. And it's going to bring down the banks. You're looking at now, between now and 2026, 2026 rather, we're 2025, 2026, you're looking at over $2 trillion worth of commercial real estate loans coming due.
Jeez.
There's going to be defaults on them. Let's go back to 2023. Remember Signature Bank, First Republic, and Silicon Conman Valley Bank went bust? Look what happened to the equity markets and gold prices. Equity markets were collapsing, gold prices. That was 3 banks. You got hundreds of banks that are going to see defaults on these loans. No one is talking about it. Right. It's not in any of the media.
No. Yeah, we've covered it last year quite a few times here on the show. We've also covered the scam that is the FDIC. We've covered that here on the show. I think you're right about this. I mean, I don't know, and I don't know what a Trump administration would do. Would they swoop in and bail them out? Would they? I don't know that they'd be able. But how are they going to print more money?
They'll make up anything. We're going to go to a digital currency. How about that?
Yeah, that'll be the catalyst to a digital currency, right? That'll be the catalyst.
Yep. Again, I'm the president of the United States, 1933. Turn in all your gold. Oh, you know me. We knew each other for years. I thought things would collapse in 2012. They didn't teach me about zero interest rate policy and a thing called quantitative easing in Economics 101 at graduate school. Quantitative easing? Oh, how about this? Not my numbers. Levy Institute at Bard College. 29 trillion with a T. 29 trillion given to the banks, to bandits, to bail them out of the panic of '08 that they caused. They'll create anything. They're money junkies. So they'll do everything to keep it going up.
Another one of your big forecasts for 2025 is AI. So what do you mean? What do you see happening in the AI space? Obviously, a lot of concerns about AI. You're seeing it proliferating right now all across social media. But where do you see it going in 2025 and beyond?
It's going to keep escalating. It's going to bring a whole nother world in there. I just read an article from this guy, big AI guy, about you can't make this up. They say in the King James Bible that the meek shall inherit the earth. They misspelt it. The geeks have inherited the earth. This clown boy says how hard it is and all the practice it takes to play an instrument. There's no need to play an instrument anymore. AI could make it better. How disgusting.
I mean, I think, growing up, I played saxophone, piano.
Yep.
I play guitar. I play guitar still, and I don't practice enough. And I know that when I don't practice, but it's, to me, sitting down and playing guitar, it takes my mind off the world. I know you love music as well. To be able to sit there and play guitar, it's one of the great meditative practices of the world. It's unbelievable. So that AI is going to take over all of this. I really worry about it for my kids. I've got an 8-year-old, 12-year-old, a 14-year-old. Instead of learning the skills that are required to be a man, to be a success in this world, we're going to just turn to AI and hand over everything to AI.
Yep. That's where it's going. There's no question about it. Again, I don't carry a cell phone, by the way. And I did work for the cellular telecommunications industry going back to the early, 1994, when there were boxes in the trunks of cars and aerials. And I've been studying the radio frequency radiation of those things since then. And again, the latest, they're hardly putting out the data anymore, but you could look it up. University of California, Berkeley, you're on a cell phone for 17 minutes a day for 10 years. Your chances of getting a brain tumor only increase by 60%. And it goes on and on, the 5Gs. So anyway, going back to AI, it's the future. It's the future. It's going to keep going. But now there's the other element of it. Again, we're old enough to remember the dot-com bust. And we had forecast that in the Trends Journal, by the way, in December 1999, we said it would bust by the second quarter of 2000, and it went down in March. They're overinvesting in a lot of these companies. And we heard the guy from NVIDIA say some things about this quantum computing on and on may not happen for another 15 to 30 years. They're over-investing in it. So you're going to start seeing some big busts coming in the dot-com sector that could also bring down the economy, the equity markets rather. Oh, and by the way, the big one.
So like huge investments in AI that are going bust. Because a lot of people are sitting there wondering, like, I've talked to a lot of people. They're like, I don't see how this fits into my business. I don't see how this fits into my life. But all of these companies are spending billions of dollars. They're building massive data centers because of all of the energy required and all of the processing required in the cloud for AI. So you think there's going to be a bust in this sector too?
Yeah, there'll be a bust, just like the dot-com bust. It didn't end it. It busted it when it was over speculated, and then it continued. And that's what we see happening here. There's a high probability of a bust in the dot-com sector because of AI, overinvesting. But that doesn't mean it's going to change it. You remember, and again, we call the dot-com bust when they're making stuff up. I'm saying, this is the beginning of the internet revolution. It happened in the 90s. And I'm listening to this. They're not making any sense. They're not making any sense. And that's what you're starting to see going on in AI. It's going too far without not enough happening to make it worth the value it is. But it's going to keep expanding. So there are ups and downs in life. And there may be a big down in the dot-com sector, in the NASDAQ sector this coming year.
We saw similar downside to NFTs. You remember those non-fungible tokens as it related to crypto? Like this was going to be the future. Everything is going to be an NFT. You better buy, buy $1 million NFTs, digital versions of things, and that went totally bust. Maybe people are still buying NFTs. I don't know, but certainly it seems like that was a ship that sailed. Your fourth trend that I wanted to talk about. This hits home for me. This is something we cover deeply here on our show, geopolitics, right? We've got still the war in Ukraine. There's discussion that there may have been some sort of backroom peace talks happening between Putin and Trump and the Trump team. Obviously, we've seen this sort of temporary hostage ceasefire in Gaza. How long will that last? We don't know. Al-Qaeda has now taken over Syria, which is backed by the CIA. So the regime change operations there. So China, we see the trouble in the Nordic Sea right now. The North Sea trade route. Geopolitics. Look into your crystal ball here in your trends forecasting. What do you see happening this year in geopolitics?
Well, that goes to one of our other trends, wild cards. And it's a wild card. And if Trump lives by his word and there's peace with the Ukraine war and the Israel war, that's a positive. But then you got to look at some of the other facts. And again, we only put the facts down, but what's being reported. And there's more and more pressure, they say, that they're going to push on to Iran. So let's go making connections. All things are connected. Let's go back a little over a month ago. You had Brent crude at about $71 a barrel. Now, because of the sanctions that increasing that Biden just put on Russia, Brent crude is at $81 a barrel. And we got a cold winter. Prices are moving up. Now let's go to the Iran war. There are about 7 million people in Israel when you take the Arab population out. There are 91 million in Iran. You don't have to be good at numbers to figure this out. Iran is a very advanced society, culturally, scientifically. They're technologically. Militarily, exactly. Trump team and the Netanyahu team are ramping up talk about putting more pressure on Iran. If war breaks out between the United States and Israel against Iran, or Israel against Iran, you're going to see Brent crude go to about $120, $130 a barrel. That will crash the global economy and it will crash the equity markets. That is the big wild card play on the geopolitical side. On the other side, with Ukraine war, all of a sudden there could be a false flag event. The Russians just bombed a nuclear power plant and whatever. They'll make up something. So you don't know where this is going to go. Ukraine is going to do everything they can to stay into this war, regardless of what Trump wants to do. So those are the wild cards in there. But if Trump lives by his word and brings peace, that'll be a boost for the economy too, because Germany's in a recession.
Yeah.
Again, the third largest economy in the world. You look at India's numbers; they just went down. China's in deflation. They have a housing apartment crisis. What they got? You look at the numbers between 60 to 90 million vacancies. And again, they caused this by themselves. When they started the COVID war on Chinese Lunar New Year, the year of the rat, January 2020, and 3 years of zero COVID policy. 3 years. They destroyed the lives and livelihoods of hundreds of millions. Oh, let's go back to this COVID war too. The damage it's done is incalculable. The inflation, that was brought to you by the COVID war. Everything should have crashed. No, don't worry about it. Here's trillions of dollars of fake money backed by nothing and printed on nothing. That's what brought the inflation up. Hey, don't stay home. Here's money. Again, the damage here, nightlife, where I am up in Hudson Valley, they call it the Hudson Valley, I call it Death Valley. 9, 10 o'clock at night now, it's dead. Down the city, it's not the same place anymore. I ask the cab drivers every time I go down there, when's it quieting down? Around 12:30 at night. Now, we used to go out at 12:30 at night.
Yeah. I lived in New York City, the city that never sleeps.
Yep.
When I worked at, when I worked at Fox News and I would get there like 4 a.m. There, all the bars are still open, restaurants still open, people in Times Square. Different world.
Yep. And again, you got to look what's going on. Europe is in a very, very dangerous place right now. And you mentioned before about Trump getting rid of the bureaucracy. That's what's killed Europe, the bureaucracy. I used to spend a lot of time in Italy. It's one of the most bureaucratic places around. And Germany's right there with it. They're killing businesses. And bureaucrats are the low-life pieces of crap that you could find anywhere. Bureaucrats, these are people that can't get a job in the real world, that suck into the political system and become the most arrogant. Oh, and they get all the benefits when they quit working after a short time. They're destroying the economy in a country near you, city, state, all over the world. And so it may be very positive what Trump does in getting rid of a lot of this bureaucratic crap.
I hope so. Yeah, a lot of things to unpack here. And you're right. I think the wild card is Iran. And I think another wild card in this mix, too, is how do we handle what's about to happen in Egypt? If we support the same ISIS, Al-Qaeda terrorists that overthrew Syria, are we going to support the same Al-Qaeda, ISIS terrorists that are trying to create a coup right now in Egypt to bring down that government? And where will Trump come down on all of this? I think is a huge, huge question right now. I'm hopeful. I mean, he was the only one during the debates. Again, just on the facts, he was the only one talking about nuclear war and warmongers. And we've got to stop this stuff. He was the only one, and he was laughed at. Kamala Harris was like smirking at him when he was talking about nuclear war. And I think we are at an incredibly dangerous moment right now, especially with Iran and what we do against Russia.
And what happened, we're talking about Syria now, Israel, the facts are there. Israel's taking more and more land in Syria.
Right.
They're controlling, and they're moving in more and more, so what's going to happen over there?
I mean, they have a freaking ceasefire with Lebanon. They're not adhering to the ceasefire, against Hezbollah in Lebanon. So they're continuing there. And how much more land will they take in Syria as well? You're right. Throughout that entire region. I think there's one of my big wild cards is this sort of fight between Trump and Netanyahu legitimate, or are they playing good cop, bad cop right now? Where Trump tweets a video of Jeffrey Sachs calling out Netanyahu being, a deeply dark son of a bitch, Was that him playing good cop, bad cop against Netanyahu? So Netanyahu's forced into the ceasefire. He's not going to come to the inauguration. Is this all like theater right now, or is this legitimate pressure from Trump to Netanyahu? It's hard to say.
Clayton, you just came up with a very important question. This is from Press TV. I said we go to all over. This is an Iranian release, and this was on Tuesday. U.S. President Donald Trump has promised to allow the Israeli regime's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to resume the campaign of genocide in the besieged Gaza Strip after signing potential ceasefire deal with Hamas, according to the Israeli media. Ynet News, which is the Israeli one, citing a source familiar with the matter, reported on Tuesday that Trump has promised Netanyahu that if he agrees to a ceasefire and the withdrawal of the Israeli military from Gaza, he will support Tel Aviv retroactively if it decides to resume the war and violate the truce. Exactly what you said. Exactly what you said. Again, that's reported by the Israeli news. But none of this, by the way, is reported in the Western news. And I didn't see this in Times of Israel, Jerusalem Post, or Haaretz. But I got it out of Press TV, but the Israeli Ynet News reported it.
Yep, it's all theater. Of course, the whole world's a stage right now. And Gerald does an amazing job of navigating through all of the theater and finding the facts and providing us with these forecasts. I want to encourage, if you guys want to subscribe, we get the Trends Journal every week. We read it here at Redacted. We absolutely love it. You guys have put together a special offer for our audience. If they want to go over to redacted.inc/trends, they can subscribe to the Trends Forecast. Again, must-read publications. There's very few publications that I trust, and Gerald's Trends Forecast has been, vital reading for us here for years on this show. Again, redacted.inc/trends. And how much is it, Gerald?
Well, the Wall Street Journal is $5 a day. The toilet paper record, the New York Times, is $4 a day. Wall Street Journal, $6 on the weekend, $5 on the weekend for the New York Times. The Trends Journal, when you go to Redacted, is the grand total of $2.50 a week. And it's averages about 200 pages. You could listen to it. It comes in different languages. And people say, I can't read 200 pages. You read what you want. It's a magazine. You want to read about high-tech science. You want to read about technocracy. You want to read about AI. You want to read about crypto. You want to read about geopolitics. You want to read about economics. Again, you read what you want, but it's all there.
Redacted.inc/trends. We put a special link together, and you guys gave a nice discount for our audience too. So thank you for that nice discount. So use that link, guys, if you want to save some money and sign up for the Trends Journal. Gerald, great seeing you. I always love having you on here at the beginning of the year. You nail these things, and you've been absolutely right, especially, we look at gold prices, for crying out loud. And we're going to be watching very closely this apartment issue this year with the economy and all of these apartment complexes that have these loans that are coming due at these banks. I think it's going to be a disaster. I think you're right about that. Gerald, great to see you, and I'd love to have you back here in a few months as after the Trump administration kicks off in their first 100 days. Why don't you say? We'll come back at like the 100-day mark or so.
I'd love to. Again, that's going to be the office building bust. There's going to be office buildings, commercial real estate offices. It's going to be a big one, and nobody's talking about it.
Well, you are, and we thank you for that, Gerald. Great to see you as always, my friend. Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you and everyone else.